Hello everybody, Jake Raby here again, back with another REV2 technical video. Now, in today's video, this is post-pandemic, right? So we've all been through 2020, now we're in basically the middle of 2021. A lot of the content we had for BoreScoring videos was done in 2018, 2019, and we wanted to bring everybody up to speed, so we're going back through, we're revising all of our videos, and we're making sure that all the information is current, and we're also adding some new information to each video that we've learned since 2019. So the videos we've had on BoreScoring, the Focus on BoreScoring series, has been very, very effective in helping people understand, identify, and self-diagnose BoreScoring. That's both for professionals and enthusiasts alike. And we've used the direct experience of myself and my team here at Flat 6 Innovations, as well as the guys at LN Engineering and Total Seal Piston Rings, to come up with more and more information about what is BoreScoring, the symptoms of it, how to diagnose it, and then how to live with it. And moreover, we're continuing to address it the same way we have been since 1999 using the LN Engineering Nikasil cylinder process. Now, during the whole entire calendar year of 2020, everything changed for everybody. We got a lot busier. We've got the longest backlogs we've ever had. We continue to stay on schedule, which is very impressive, I believe, here at Flat 6 Innovations. But one of the most important things is I was able to finish my workbook. And this workbook is sold along with the Focus on M9X engine assembly video series. We do not sell this by itself. It is only sold in addition to the DVD series because this workbook helps to put in writing the transcripts and a lot of the photos out of the video. But it took a tremendous amount of time to put together this 260 or so page full color guide to the M9X engine assembly. So that's something that we were able to accomplish during 2020. We also accomplished the reconstruction of about another 50 M9X engines during 2020, and we've already done over 30 during 2021. So what really has brought 92% of those engines to us has been cylinder bore scoring. Some of those were found asymptomatically. Most of them did have symptoms. So it's the focus of this particular update to this video to help you understand what we continue to see with these engines and what we need to try to change our gears with a little bit and share with you about what we've learned since we shot this back in 2019 the first time. So we've gone through each of our videos and we've revised all the content to make sure that it is current and up to date with what we're seeing in 2021. I think that's important, and I think that each of you will get a better understanding of what BoreScoring is, how to treat it, how to diagnose it by watching all these videos in the series that are unparalleled from a professional level with anybody in the world that is doing this work. Of course, there's a whole lot of new people jumping on board and doing things with these engines, and that's great because we can't build them all. At the same time, there's a lot of misinformation coming from that because they haven't seen what we've seen. And, you know, it's just a gross amount of engines that we've been able to work with over the years that had the same characteristics. A lot of those come to us from Canada. Some of them come to us from the desert. Some come to us from Florida. You know, and back in the day, we used to only see BoreScoring really come from cold climates. That is not the case anymore. We're currently seeing BoreScoring from all over North America and the world. Most recently, we've got an engine here from Hawaii, which we'd never had a Hawaiian engine before have BoreScoring. We're seeing this happen in Southern California. We're seeing it happen in Nevada. We're seeing it happen in Texas, Florida. you name it, and as well as all through Canada and the northeastern and the Midwestern states here in the U.S. as well. Now, one reason for that is because another 3 years has gone by. These cars have kind of moved their locations. A guy from Florida, really might not be from Florida. Maybe he's from New York or New Jersey. He went to Florida, he traded his car in, and now that car is a Florida car, when it really isn't. That car came with him from New Jersey, and it's really a New Jersey car. So it has the rust issues and the bore scoring issues that it would have had from being a New Jersey car. So that's something people really don't think about. So we continue to see the same characteristics with these engines, but we've been able to define things a bit further because we're able to pay particular attention to these issues. Now, I stopped accepting a whole lot of our work because we had so much bore scoring going on. We love to address bore scoring problems. It is very easy for us to give a customer an absolute price point up front and stay on track for that, budgetary wise, all the way to the end. There's no real question marks from a bore scoring perspective, and that's a very big key thing. So with all the bore scoring out there, we've been selecting those jobs as most of the ones that I take on, shoving some of the other stuff to the side, massive failures, things like that. We got so much bore scoring going on, we love dealing with it. And a lot of elective work as well. A lot of people that are having, they know there's an inevitable thing coming, they love the car, they want to do an elective job. So, of course, if we can take on bore scoring and elective work, well, I'm going to take all those engines that are blown to bits and not work with them, just because they're very difficult to find parts for and very difficult to deal with, because we can't ink a number in the very beginning and hold that to the end like we like to do. So doing that has exposed us to even more bore scoring. Sometimes we'll take apart 7 engines in a row that were scheduled in here, all had bore scoring. They could be from all over North America. And we take those apart and we compare them. Now, one way we compare them is with this SJ210 profilometer. This profilometer is a tool we've always had. We've added a couple more of them to our toolbox, and we've been getting information from some other folks across the Porsche industry about what they've seen as they've added a SJ210 profilometer to their toolbox. So we're able to compare notes. Also, this is a surface finish profilometer. Basically what that measures is the surface finish in micro inches of any kind of surface. We use it, as you see here, to measure the bores and tell us how rough they are. So one thing we've learned, and we're going to add a new video in our series here about the surface finish as an overview, and one of the main things that we're seeing cause bore scoring. Because at the end of the day, when you have bore scoring, you end up with a loss of the piston skirt coating. Usually this is a precursor to the bore scoring. There's a couple of different types of this used. We go over this in the rest of the video series. There's a ferro stand and a ferro print, and each of those has kind of their own characteristics when it comes to failure, possibilities, how they fail, how long they take to fail, the things that play into it. But either one of them has the same characteristic of the skirt coating going away, and it creates a situation where you have an aluminum piston riding on a similar material of an aluminum bore, and that is the basic premise for bore scoring, okay? So you can see this side of this particular piston looks fine. It has no problems, okay? This is not the thrust side of this particular piston. This side is the thrust side. So here we're able to see that we've got a lot of bore scoring going on, and this one actually came out of this bore on this particular block. And we'll show you a little later on how scored these can be. So we continue to see what we've always seen. There are aggravators to bore scoring. Everybody always asks me, what is the thing that causes bore scoring? I want to be very clear with you and say there is no one thing that causes this. Yes, we do believe that we're seeing a lot of fuel intrusion problems with modern fuels and injectors that aren't performing well. And there are some physical attributes about the engine, the stroke ratio, the rod length, all these things play into it. They are aggravators to it. They're catalysts to it. They help to set up the planet alignment that causes it. At the end of the day, what we're seeing is those things equal a sum that is heavily contributed to by this surface finish. And that surface finish is kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back. It is the thing that determines whether your engine is going to have bore scoring from the day it was manufactured are not. So the final thing I want to go over with you guys before we get into our previously recorded content that we have revised and brought up to 2021 is a couple of questions about base model Boxster and Cayman models. So as we go into the future content here, you'll see there wasn't really any mention about those particular models. But those particular models continue to impress us with the fact that they do not have bore scoring problems. So since we shot the last one of these videos in 2019, we still have not seen a single one of the base model Boxster or Cayman engines, which would be 2.7 liters, and the later ones are also 2.5 liter in the early Boxster. We have not seen a single one of those failures. I have heard of one, but in flat six, we have not physically seen one. Now, people ask us, why is that? That is because everything is different with a base model. It has a smaller bore size, 85.5 millimeter, okay? It also has a longer connecting rod. It has a shorter stroke in most cases. The 2.7 actually shares a 78 stroke with the S model Boxster. But in most cases, there are more favorable conditions physically in that engine, as well as the fact that they use a different piston material, and we believe that is one of the major factors in this. We've also learned that the base model engine has a different surface finish inside the bore than what we've seen with the S model engine or all the 911 variants. And that is because they changed the piston materials and the skirt coatings. It does not share the same skirt coating as you've seen fail on this piston, okay? So again, the base model, and we're talking your M97-22 engines, that series, all the way through to the end of the base model cars. All the 2.7s and all the 2.5s is the best way that I can say that, from 97 to 08. This does not continue on into the 2.9 liter engines and the base model 9 Alpha 1 cars starting in 09. Again, this is specifically 97 through 2008. We are not seeing bore scoring problems with those engines. We have not seen that, and I do not believe we will ever see that based on what we're seeing here today in 2021. So now I'm going to go ahead and lead us into our previously recorded and edited material from back in 2019, and we're going to do this to a few of the other videos that also need some revision. So as time goes on, I think it's important that we always make sure what we're conveying to everybody is what we see as the newest, latest, and greatest, and fully documented with all the things that we've learned as we've done more and more of these surface finish tests and other things like that that continues to make it the flat six difference. The engines most affected by bore scoring in the M96 and M97 series of Porsche engines are the 1999 through 2001 Porsche 9961, 2002 through 2004 Porsche 9962, 2005 to 2008 Porsche 9971, 2006 to 2008 Porsche Cayman 9871, 2007 and 2008 Porsche Boxster 9871. Now that we've gone over the cars that are actually afflicted by this condition of bore scoring, let's talk about the models that Porsche built during this period that are not affected by this. That would be the GT2, GT3, and turbo models, okay? That doesn't mean we can take an M96 or M97 and put a turbo on it and have it not be affected. We're talking about the genuine factory articles of GT2, GT3, and turbo. Those engines all had a Nikasil bore. Nickel, silicon, and carbide plating. You're going to be learning more about Nikasil and how we apply it to these M96 and M97 engines later on in these video series. But for now, let's just say that GT2, GT3, turbo, and Nikasil don't have a problem. Okay, so what we have here is a genuine article Porsche 996 turbo cylinder. This one came off of an engine with about 96,000 miles on it, featured a broken timing chain actually. But if you could see these cylinders, there's no wear to them. So the Nikasil never wears. We've never seen a turbo or a GT2, GT3 have a problem with the cylinders unless something else caused it. So inside here you see the Nikasil plating. It's a plating, not a coating, very important. And then on the outside of the cylinder, we notice that it is not an integral cylinder. So here with our M96 and M97, we have 3 cylinders that are integral to the crankcase. The turbo has a water jacket that actually unbolts, and then these cylinders slide into the water jacket. So it's a completely different engine. It's a much different design because basically the turbo and the GT2, GT3 all share the 964 air-cooled crankcase. It's another derivative of that crankcase. So what the factory did was make an easier way to put these engines together, being the fact that it originally was an air-cooled crankcase. So Nikasil, GT2, GT3, turbo, good to go. As we begin to understand what bore scoring is, I want to start off by saying it is an often misdiagnosed and misunderstood mode of failure that is leading to more and more failures of these M96 and M97 engines every year. As we move further through the series, we're going to explain the sequence of events that occur during the bore scoring mode of failure. We're going to help you understand the symptoms you may need to look for and what needs to be done if your engine actually does fall prey to bore scoring. So what we have here is 1/2 of the engine block. You've got 2 pieces of this. One houses the cylinders for bank 1 through 3. The other houses the cylinders for bank 4 through 6. So this is the engine block. So the bore is also known as the cylinder. So here we have our crankcase half. It has 3 integral cylinders or bores residing within it. Inside of these bores are where the pistons will travel up and down to create the combustion process, or basically to transfer the heat energy, if you will, into mechanical energy. So as the piston travels up the top dead center, the top of this bore, the explosion occurs, hopefully a controlled explosion, forcing this piston down the bore. As this occurs, that heat energy is transferred into mechanical energy. So we have a few things going on here. We have a lot of heat, we have a lot of friction, we have a lot of wear, and that means that design, composition, material, and structure all matter. Okay, so next to this equation is the piston. Now we've already talked about it a little bit here, but I want you to understand some elements of the piston. So the piston is probably the easiest thing for you to Google to understand what it is and kind of how it works, but it also incorporates some other design elements. So we have 3 piston rings. So piston ring design is the key, and it has to be taken into consideration for the type of bore that's used, the cylinder finish, and all these sorts of things equate to what piston ring really needs to be used. So on this piston, it's a 3-ring piston, meaning we have a 3-piece oil control ring. So it actually has a inner portion, which is actually what meters the amount of oil flow, because it is the oil control ring. It's what meters how much oil volume gets to the cylinder to lubricate it. And that has 2 small scrapers, if you will, that also hold the oil ring into place in its ring land, okay? Then here we have the second ring, which is what we call the second compression ring. This ring is responsible for 80% of the engine's oil control. So this is often thought just to be kind of a backup compression ring, but that's not the case. Oil control is primarily the role of this particular ring. So this ring is one of the most important rings in the ring pack, meaning all 3 rings equating to the ring pack. Then here we have the top ring. This is the top compression ring. Its primary objective in life is to hold the compression that's being made by this particular piston as it travels upward in the cylinder, is to control that amount of compression and not let it bleed by or blow by the cylinder. The same thing happens for induction. So it helps to keep the combustion chamber a little bit cleaner as well. So I'm trying to break this down into lay terms so you guys that don't work on engines every day can understand this. So now as we move forward, I want to pick up a different piston here, and I've removed a couple of the rings from this one, and you can see the empty grooves here. These are the lands, what we call the ring lands. So that is where the piston ring resides within the piston, okay? Now, while I have this piston here, I want to show you what a really healthy piston will look like, okay? And this particular one has only got a couple of scratches. Now, this is a ferrostan coating. This was a coating that was basically developed by Mala, who is the OEM for the Porsche pistons used in these particular engines. And this piston coating is designed to be a dissimilar wear material between the aluminum or Nikasil cylinder and the aluminum piston. So the idea is here that you want to have a dissimilar wear surface. You don't want the components that have friction against each other and are wearing against each other to have a similar composition of material. So this particular coating is one of the things that we see add into the equation of bore scoring. So again, this is a ferrostan coating. Now, this is what it looks like when it's normal, and this is what it looks like when it's abnormal. Then, this is what it looks like as it's traveling through the stages of 4 steps of bore scoring. Scoring is best defined as the damaging gradual removal of material upon a solid surface. Now, with these cylinders, the scoring begins and ends in a longitudinal type arrangement, and you'll see that with all the scored bores we're going to show you in this video series. Now, this particular cylinder has not scored. This is cylinder 4 on bank 2 of a 2002 to 2004 Porsche M9603 engine. That's the engine designation, M96/03. So that's 2002 to 2004 996-2. So here, this is what a cylinder should look like, okay? And there's none of those lines going up and down. There's none of that longitudinal wear. It's got a nice, consistent surface finish, and it looks the way a cylinder should look. Now, we're going to move into cylinder 5, which has suffered 4 complete stages of failure and is now defined as a scored cylinder. So you notice here that at the top, we've actually got the engine flipped upside down for demonstration purposes to get the lighting correct. But as you can see here, this is actually the top of the cylinder, and with this particular cylinder, it has got more wear on the top than it has at the bottom. Now, as we go through the video series, we're going to explain to you why this occurs, especially on this bank of cylinders. That'll be probably a couple of segments down the road. The rest of this cylinder looks fine. It looks just like its adjacent cylinder number 4, except for this wear patch that basically starts at the bottom of the cylinder, which now this is where the cylinder head goes. This is the top of the cylinder. So at the very root of this is actually the bottom of the cylinder. This is where scoring always starts. Follow through with this because that is something we're going to bring up later on in the video series that makes diagnosis of this very difficult because of where it starts and how long it takes it to basically wear up the length of the cylinder, moving closer and closer to the top of the cylinder. Now, cylinder number 6. This one is the famous cylinder for scoring. Now, we see just as many failed cylinders on cylinder 5 and even cylinder 4 here at Flat 6 Innovations as we do cylinder 6. It seems this is the cylinder that has gotten the worst rap because this is the one people will usually check out first. So when we, later on in the later segments of this video, we're going to start out just like most shops would by doing this. After watching this video, we're going to go straight to cylinder number 6 and we're going to look for problems there. So you'll see that now cylinder 6 has also seen all 4 stages of failure. It has got deep scoring that goes from the bottom of the cylinder and travels all the way up. Probably 80% of the cylinder is covered with score marks at the top here. The rest of the cylinder looks okay. However, the part you can't see, which is the bottom of this one, is starting to wear as well. Okay, so listen closely as I use this pointer that I have here, and you will see this is not superficial. This is deep within the composition of this cylinder. It's worn through the parent material a great deal. So you can hear that. You know, we can catch a fingernail on that very easily. The same thing goes with cylinder number 5. Now listen closely as I go to cylinder 4. So you have a nice tinny sound, but none of that really ragged scratching like that. That gives you an idea of how rough this is. If you were in person, this is a lot different than it is here on video. So this is cylinder bore scoring. So far in today's segment, we've learned what scoring is, what cylinders are, what pistons are, what the block is, and now I want to go over what everybody's wondering, is how do you get rid of this problem? How do you treat this problem? We're going to go over that in a special segment of this video a lot later. But I just want to end this particular video today by explaining to you this is not complete death for this engine. You don't really need a new engine. If you get a new engine, it actually could have the same problem all over again because it has the same technology and it has all the pieces of the equation rolled into it as what's created your problem here the first time. Okay? So as we move forward, we're going to go through the symptoms of this stuff, you know, how you diagnose it, and ultimately how we reconstruct this engine to get rid of these original problematic cylinders, replace them with something a lot better, and to make sure we don't have a problem moving forward. So with that being said, wait for segment number 2, where we're going to talk about what creates bore scoring.